everyone, this is Alex Jafari, and we're going to go over the homework problem from Chapter 2, Section 4, Systematic Design with Interfaces. Once again, we're following the book AP Computer Science Done Right, which is available on Amazon, and you can purchase it as an ebook or a hard copy. I'm joined by Irfan, who's going to go through this homework problem with us. Irfan, hi.
Hi Alex, how's it going?
It's going really well. I'm excited to start. So, if you remember, Fawn, in the last section, we talked about this homework that, the world's reset button has been accidentally pushed, and all the memories and everything that we have built has essentially been wiped. The most pressing problem is making sense of human clothes. So, what is these like limbs, these clothes? How do we stay warm? Um, we essentially want to design a program that represents these clothing items. So, skirts, pants, tops, and shirts. We want to accurately code their similarities and differences and essentially be able to build a closet and save the world. Are you ready?
Yes, let's save the world together.
Excellent. So, if the viewers have seen our previous videos, we typically just start the coding the homework together. However, for this one, we want to try something new, and perhaps people can let us know how they feel about it. But I've asked you to separately and independently code the program, and together we're gonna go through the answer and essentially do a code walk, which is a super important skill to have as well. So let's do a code walk. All right, Irfan, the floor is yours. Where would you like me to start?
Okay, so as you read the question, I divided the clothing items to two classes: lower body dresses and upper body dresses.
Okay, keep going.
Yes, in the lower body dresses, if you could go there, please.
Sure.
Yes, we can see that I wrote a string type for the name of the dress, an int for warmth level, and also two Boolean methods to see if they cover arms and legs, the dresses or not.
Mm-hmm.
I also wrote the constructor
Mm-hmm.
and I wrote the methods as well to return the type and warmth level.
Okay, I have a few questions before we get started. So first of all, I'm seeing that lower body dresses implements an interface. I assume we can talk about the interface later. Um, with string type, I don't know if I understand this. Could you give me an example of a type?
Yes, so as I wrote here, there are different clothing items such as skirt or pants for the lower body dress. And by a string type, I mean the name of the dress.
So, what's an example of a name of a dress?
It would be, as I said, like a skirt.
Okay, so it would either be skirt or pants.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, I have a question. You might even remember this from a previous sections or previous homework problem, but if the answer can only be one or two, um, what should our type be? Is string really the best use of type for this scenario?
Boolean can also be used, but I thought that maybe we want to add more clothing items to this program. So
Okay,
I use the string.
okay. This is like a great point, and it's a very important point, so I want to explain this better. So, first of all, when you're programming something, it's important to think about the future, but you shouldn't let it limit you. So, if right now you only have two items, skirt and pants, you shouldn't necessarily say, oh, even though a boolean would fit really nicely here, I would still go with a string because I don't know if we want to add things in the future. In the future, if we do decide to add, we can easily change that from a boolean to a different thing. Does that first point make sense?
Yes, sure, it makes sense. So it should be changed to a Boolean type, right?
Right. The second point I have here is your comment here, name of dress, is not very explicit and it's not very obvious to me. So I had to have this conversation with you to figure out what type is. However, if you just wrote it is either skirt or pants, that would have made things so clear and so easy to understand. Does that make sense?
Okay, yes, it makes sense.
Excellent. Let's say you even had different options if it wasn't supposed to be a boolean. The problem with strings is that it's so easy to mismatch. So, for example, if I write it with a lowercase s or with an uppercase, or if I write pants versus pant, or these things that are essentially the same thing but they're mistyped could be different. So I would change the string type to be something else, and in this case, I guess it could be a boolean. And I would also change perhaps the field name because I don't think type is, exactly the right phrase for it. So, what do you recommend us changing right now?
So as you said, we'll change a string to a Boolean,
Mm-hmm.
and also the name of the Boolean would be, let's say, dress name, maybe.
Hmm. So booleans can either be true or false. So what would it mean for dress name to be true or false?
Let's say if it's true, if the boolean is true, it will
Mm-hmm.
return because it's in the lower body dress class. It will return pants and skirts,
Pants and skirts?
pants or skirts. Excuse me.
Hmm. Okay. Let's first clarify here. So this type is supposed to teach us if it's a skirt or a pants. It will always be pants or skirts. It will never be, a top body dress since this is in class lower body dress. So we're trying to say if true, it should be either a skirt, and then if false, it should be the other one. Does that make sense?
Okay, yes.
Okay. So what do you want it to be if it's true?
I have no idea how would we represent a boolean type.
Um, I think there's a misconception about how booleans are. Let me first let me first explain booleans. Okay, so booleans can either be set to true or false. Okay, now
Yes.
you can name things differently in booleans. So you can say, okay, a boolean is essentially a flag, and a flag could be, oh, is it is this a valid parameter, or is this skirt, or is this pants, or is this person, or is it whatever. So it's these kind of questions. So then when they are true, so for example, if we had this boolean flag is valid, if it's true, then that thing is valid, and if it's false, it's not valid. If it's skirt is true, then it's a skirt, and if it's false, then it's a pants. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
Okay. So when you were trying to represent a boolean, you would just do boolean, whatever name you want to give it. And then in comments, you would say when it's false, it represents X, Y otherwise. So when it's true, it would be Y, for example.
But the thing is that here, well, when we're going to represent the skirt and pants,
Mm-hmm.
it has to be it always has to be true.
Um, Not if you're saying one or the other. The lower body dress can be either a skirt or a pants, right?
Right?
So if I have something like bullion is skirt, then I can say true for skirts, false for pants.
Okay, makes sense.
Yeah. Does this does this um does this make sense to you in terms of why it's better to have this as opposed to a type string?
Again, if you want to add the clothing items in future, we will change it to a string. But now, yes, it does. It makes sense.
Okay, perfect. All right. And even if you don't want to use a boolean, if you prefer to use a string for whatever reason, I would just say the comments really need to be better. So instead of saying name of the dress, which honestly, first I thought you were talking about, first of all, a dress, um, as opposed to a lower body clothing item. And secondly, I thought you meant the name of it, like a Prada or Zara, not necessarily skirt or pants. So I
Oh, I
think,
see.
yes, I think changing it to either skirt or pants will make sense. Um, but okay, great. Next, then you have the warmth level on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being very warm. This is an excellent field, very good comment to the end, and then it makes perfect sense for it to be an int, and the naming convention here is really good. So good job there.
Thank you.
And then you have covers, arms, and legs. Talk to me about these fields. What are they, and why do you have them?
Yes, so we have two different classes, lower body dresses and upper body dresses.
Yeah.
And in the lower body dresses class, they don't cover arms, so I wanted to return false for this one.
Uh huh. But why is this information helpful? Because if you are creating a lower body dress from the name of it, shouldn't you know that it's covering arms or legs?
Yes, you're right. I just wanted to use Boolean because at first I didn't. I was just using a string, and I
Yeah,
was yes.
I see, I see. But this is a good point. Like in general, when you're doing programming, don't feel like you need to use all the types. It might just be that you only need two. Let's go back to the homework problem. So we want to um, represent skirts, pants, tops, and shirts. Their similarities and differences. So I think without the cover, arms, and legs, these two alone would be sufficient because essentially because your design of two separate classes already encompasses this. If you didn't have two separate class and if you only had like let's say one class or something, then you would need this boolean. But you don't need it because you have already distinguished it between different classes. Does that make sense?
That's right. Yes, it does make sense.
Excellent. Okay. All right, great. And then you have your
Excuse me,
constructor.
don't we want to edit the code?
What do you mean?
Like remove the parts that are unnecessary and change the string to a Boolean?
Sure, yeah. It's just that it will create a lot of errors in the other ones. So I want to first go through it together, and then
Sure.
yeah, we can edit it after. Okay, so then you have your constructor, which is easy enough. Um, the type gets type, and warmth level also gets the warmth level. All right, and then you have
And I
get
also have another question here.
yeah.
Well, when we're creating a Boolean, do we need to put that in the constructor as well?
Yeah, so I mean, it depends if the constructor is going to take a bunch of parameters and then set it. So right now, the way that you have said it is that you're just saying true for all covers legs and false for all covers arms. So you don't really need to use it in the constructor because it doesn't matter. Like you can't create a lower body dress with cover arms to be true because that's just not how it works. So you don't need to set it here. But it's not because of the Boolean aspect. It's because cover arms is never going to be true in a lower body dress.
I understand. Yes, thank you.
Of course. Um, I am not seeing a lot of comments for the constructor, but perhaps that's okay. I don't know. Maybe one example of a lower body dress would be a good comment to add. But overall, I think you've done a nice job with the naming conventions. And they need to be lowercase, and then the method name needs to be camel case. So just like this, the first letter is lowercase, and then after that, um, every word should start with a capital letter. So good job there. There's an extra space here for some reason, but no need to worry about it. And then once again, I'm not really sure what the purpose of these are because you don't seem to be even using them.
Yes, you're right. I thought that by just writing return, I'm using them. What do you mean you're not using them?
Uh, I mean, sorry, one second. I mean, you're not using this method. So, for example, this method and this method are being used in your interface. That's why they have a different color. But these two methods are never being used. Like, no one is calling, essentially, whoops, sorry. No one is calling lower body dress dot covers arms.
Oh, okay. I understand.
So that is like a way that we can tell, oh, this method is not really needed because no one even needs it. No one's calling it.
That's right, yes.
And be very careful about the use of public. Public should only be the case when you know someone outside is needing it. So in these two cases, it makes sense because your interface needs it. But, um, it's not needed here. All right. What's the next file that you'd like us to go over?
We can check out the interface to see it.
Okay.
I think it's very simple and easy to understand. I created an interface um, with two fields.
Well, you've created methods, right? Because these are methods.
Two methods, yes.
Uh-huh.
And I call them in the other classes. So I think it's two all.
So a few things. Number one, remember the naming convention for interfaces. You want to start with an I, and you want to start with a capital letter. So I would change that, and you would have to change the file name too. That's one thing. Then you're definitely missing some documentation. It definitely needs some comments saying what this represents. And you certainly need comments for get type and get warmth level. You have it. You have a really nice one here on a scale of 1 to 10. You can lift it up to the interface because I should be able to look at your interface and know exactly what your methods are going to promise me to have.
Okay, makes sense. Yeah.
Excellent. And yeah, okay, all right, your interface makes sense. So shall we go to the upper body dress?
Sure, I think I made the same mistake here for the booleans.
Uh-huh.
There were no need to add these, and also we can change the string type to a boolean here.
Yeah, because if you take a look, you currently have very, very similar classes. The only difference is that you return. Oh no, what did I do? Okay. You The only difference is that you return false for covered arms in one class and true for another. So the fact that they're so similar should tell you that you need to change things a little bit, or that those booleans are not as needed. Um, Another thing is your naming convention. A class needs to be singular because a class is a category. So it's a category of lower body. Um, I would change it to a lower body clothing item as opposed to a dress because, it's not a dress. Um, and then similar for clothing items, I would say clothing item. Because if you think about it, when you're creating an example, you're creating an example for one item, not for a list of items.
Makes sense, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's because of my English.
No, it's okay. Lots of people write items or plural because they are not understanding um, the class. But these are all points about programming conventions and naming conventions. It has no bearing to your wonderful English abilities. So I wouldn't think about that. Um,
Okay.
all right. Do you see anything else that's missing, or are these three classes all that was needed?
I think that's it. That represents the information that are needed in the question.
So I would say you have not followed the design recipe to add tests and examples. I don't think you fully expressed all the information because part of the information is a test. Wouldn't you agree?
I would agree, you're right.
Yeah. So I would add tests for get type, get warmth level, and upper body dress as well. Um, but in general, good instinct to have a clothing item interface and separating it to two different lower body or upper body dress. The main thing to think about is, let's see, you've asked skirts, pants, tops, and shirts. Yeah, so the main thing that they have in common is whether or not they cover upper body or lower body. So I think that works out just fine. I'm seeing some examples here though. It looks like you created an example, but I don't think you've used any of the examples, right?
Yes, you're right. I just wrote them.
Okay, great. Um, but yeah, good job overall. Any questions or concerns?
I think that's it.
Excellent. All right. Have a good day, Irfan.
You too. Thank you.